million children die from preventable diseases. Each day, 30,000 people die from hunger. 500 each hour are children. The Borgen Project is turning this around. We need your help. To learn more, go to BorgenProject.org. That's BORGEN project.org.
Are you interested in putting solar panels on your roof? Do you want the latest on Montana's renewable energy policies? The Montana Renewable Energy Association is a leading voice for renewable energy education and advocacy in Montana. From community-based clean energy events to advocating at the Montana legislature, they work to ensure Montana's future is powered by the sun, wind, and earth. Find out more about MREA and join as a member by visiting montanarenewables.org or calling 406-214-9405.
You've been auditioning at the dinner table for years. Are you finally ready to hit the stage? Arts Missoula and ASUM are teaming up again to showcase the best of the region's high school talent at First Night Spotlight. Audition at Hellgate or Big Sky after school on December 2nd and 5th, respectively. Or for Sentinel, Willard, and surrounding schools, tryouts will be held 11:30 a.m. Saturday, December 7th at the UC Theater. The best of the best will be invited to perform live on New Year's Eve. To sign up for First Night Spotlight tryouts, go to artsmissoula.org.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, the 2017 Radio Sports Broadcaster of the Year on the show with back-to-back Montana Broadcaster Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. It's the middle of the week, and we start ramping it up for Cat Grizz Saturday. Good afternoon. It is Tutel and Nuanez. Outstanding to be with you. I am Ryan Tutel. Colter right over here. We are happy to be on the air, 102.9 ESPN Radio, and across the state on SWX Montana Television with all of you. We are certainly appreciate you letting us be on board with you. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Get in there in Missoula on Saturday, December 7th, the 7th annual snow day. One day only, biggest sale of the entire year, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Go there Saturday, December 7th. If you find us on the World Wide Web, well, that's great. We're there. 1029ESPN.com is the shortcut. You can Google it, I suppose, too, if you want to. However you want to go about it, you find us there. You listen live on the Listen Live tab. The stream, it's brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. It's a fun way to listen on that old stream. Feel like you're, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Feel like I'm finding out things that other people, just like a little kind of like in the back room or something like that.
When is the last time you listened to the live stream?
Well, how could I? I mean, I haven't listened to our live stream.
I have. When I was driving to Eugene, Oregon.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you're not here, you can listen to the live stream.
You were talking to like Bert Campaneras or something like that.
I just feel like the internet, I thought it would be bigger. I'm in there and I feel squeezed. That's what I feel like. 329-1899, the phone number. Call us. It's a big day today. Plenty to get to. All guests join us via the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. By the way, if you want to watch the show and you can't be there live with us on SWX, you can go to YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and check it out that way. It's there live also, but it's also then cataloged and available for you all the time. So you can go check it out. Check out the various shirt selections we have, some of our varying hairstyles. I did get a little trim yesterday. Thank you very much. So looking good today. You can see it on the YouTube. Let's take a look at what we got in the show. This is cool. I'm really excited today. We're going to start off talking about the playoffs and playoff seeding And you say, well, why are you doing that now? We got Cat Grizz to get to. Well, yes, certainly we do. But also, in about 10 minutes from now, we're going to be joined by the athletic director from Jacksonville State University, Greg Seitz. He is the commissioner of the FCS selection committee. So nobody better in the country to talk to than this guy about how the selections are made, what games they're keeping an eye on. We'll ask him about Cat Grizz. What are the ramifications of a win and a loss in both cases, and how that will affect what happens and the selections being made. So much to get to with him. So we're really excited about that. So we'll go through some initial stuff with you on that, and then welcome him in and get to all kinds of great information, which I think will be fun to have on the front end, frankly, of the Montana State football game, because that's going to be a huge game for all of this that we'll go through with him. It is a Wing It Wednesday. We got questions for you. We're going to send you over to the Desperado Sports Tavern for wings, the best wings in the city over there, so we'll get you set up with that. We also are going to have a conversation about who's the most important player on each of these teams, okay? Montana State. Who's the guy that has to be there and ready to roll on Saturday? And my goodness, there are a lot to choose from in this football game. So we'll get to that. Second hour, this is going to be great, man. I'm pumped up about this. It is our ESPN Roundtable. And this week, Mike Kramer, the big human, going to join us. He is a former Big Sky Conference coach at Eastern Washington, at Idaho State, and at Montana State. He played at Idaho. This is a guy that has been around the Big Sky Conference for forever. I mean, he played in the 70s in Idaho. So, I mean, you're talking about, this the Big Sky was still very new at the point that he was playing in it, and then coaching in it for 2 decades. And so we'll talk to Mike. He's a great guy to talk to about all this stuff, and especially about the rivalry. We thought it'd be a great week to have him on, so we'll get to all of that. And then a bunch of stuff coming up later on in the week as well. We will have Chase Reynolds, Jordy Tripp, Jody Owen, so a bunch of guys on the show over the next couple of days as we lead up to kickoff. And I want to remind everybody again, Friday, we will be in Bozeman for this very show at the Universal Athletic there in Bozeman. Also, the Montana Football Hall of Fame is there, and so we'll be broadcasting live from there. Got some up top gear. Shout out to the guys who are going to, helping us out with this thing, and this is the beauty up top. Doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. Doesn't matter which side of the divide you are rooting for. They got everything, okay? Including Frontier League stuff as well. So, every school, every college, this is Montana, baby. That's it. State of Montana. So Up Top Clothing going to get you there with all that. So we'll do that on Friday. And also, if you're in Western Montana, in Missoula on Saturday, we got some special programming for you on Saturday morning from about 7 a.m. on till about 10 a.m. We are going to air some of the best of the interviews that we do this week, as well as Coulter and I doing some pregame analyses day of for you. So, make sure that you're tuned in for that as you're cruising around. Maybe you're getting up early to drive over to Bozeman. It'll be on the air, just cruising around town. So we'll have that for you as well. So there you go. There's our show, and really our week outlook. It's brought to us by Shine Auto Detailing. Go get your car detailed. It doesn't just get it clean, it gets it protected. Also get your headlamps in order for you as well for free with any detailing service, Shine Auto Detailing. Coulter, again, Greg Seitz going to join us here in just about 10 minutes from now. So let's talk about the playoffs and the seeding. Again, just so that everybody's clear on this, I think we presume that most people listening to us know this, but just so we're clear, 24 teams go to the playoffs in the FCS. 8 of those get a seed, and by a seed, it just means a bye. Okay, the top 8 teams, as the selected by the committee, get the first week off, and then the other 16 teams play each other in the first round of the playoffs, 8 games. The second round of the playoffs, because there's a bye, also has 8 games, and there's 16 teams remaining, and the winner of that is into the quarterfinals, and so on down the line you go, headed for Frisco, Texas, and the national championship football game. So that's the way it starts, and it starts immediately. The first round of the playoffs is the Saturday after Thanksgiving, 2 days after Thanksgiving, and so on from there. Right now, the top 8 seeds, again, this is within the there's some projected seeds, I guess, is what they have. These are projections. These are not the Stats FCS top 8. But right now, And North Dakota State, James Madison, Montana, Weber State, Illinois State, Sac State, South Dakota State, and Wofford are the top 8 projected seeds as we've sort of found them out there. Montana State is the only unseeded team that's projected to make the field but not get a bye as of right now. But we know everything just hinges on what happens on Saturday. I mean, if Montana State beats Montana on Saturday, they will be getting a bye in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, we can confirm that with Greg Seitz when he comes on, but that seems, just fait accompli at that point. What I'm interested in, Coulter, is it looks like 4 Big Sky teams are going to get in. Is there any chance that either North Dakota or Eastern makes the field, actually makes it?
Sure. I mean, I think if Eastern Washington ties for the Big Sky title, they'll at least have a little bit of an argument, but they'll be 7-5, and I don't think they've played a tough enough schedule. If they would have beat Jacksonville State in the non-conference, perhaps. The other thing is they played a D2. Montana State did not play a Division II school, and North Dakota did not play a Division II school. Those are the 3 teams that I think that there's 14 playoff eligible teams in the Big Sky because I'm counting North Dakota as a Big Sky team. Mm-hmm. And I think there's 6 that remain alive. Sac State, Weber State, and Montana, who've all punched their ticket, win or lose this week. Although I do still feel that Sac, because of their lack of consistent national reputation, even though they are number 4 in the country, if they were to lose to UC Davis, they might fall out of that seed. I think they'd probably have to play in the first round, and that would be bad for them because I also think they'd probably have to go on the road in the first round, which would not be good considering the season that they've had. I think Weber State is getting a seed. I think Weber State is almost inevitable. They're going to beat Idaho State. If they were to lose to Idaho State, they'd probably lose a seed too, having lost 2 in a row, including to a terrible Idaho State team. But they're probably going to win, so I think they have a seed sewed up. But they're in the playoffs either way. Montana, if they were to lose, they might fall out just depending on what everybody else did. They might be like that 9th or 10th team, which would basically have a first-round game and then get to go play, say, the 8 seed on the road. That would be interesting because they would probably actually be favored in that game, and then they might be able to basically, without the bracket reseed it. You know what I'm saying? Like they would just steal the 8 from that person, but then also likely be favored over either the 8 or the whoever they played until they got to the quarters or the semis. But Montana State, if they lose on Saturday, North Dakota beats Southern Utah on Saturday. I think the Cats are in still, but I don't know. I think that there would be a real argument there just because North Dakota won the head-to-head. But North Dakota also did not play an FBS, but neither team played a D2, and North Dakota's a game short. So that means they're going to be a loss. They'll be even in the loss column and a win short. And then basically it just comes down to what is the quality wins. I also think, though, we were talking about this on FCS Speculators, which you could check out a little later on once we get that all produced up for everybody. But ironically, Montana State winning would fortify North Dakota's resume, but also probably put them outside the bubble simultaneously. Do you know what I mean? If the Cats beat the Grizz, then all of a sudden the Cats are a 9-win team, and now all of a sudden North Dakota's win over the Cats is a better win, and it fortifies their resume, but it also likely steals that 4th and final playoff spot from the Big Sky that North Dakota is chasing.
No, I don't see that. Montana State is in. They are in the playoffs.
I agree.
And so, like, if there's only four selections made, that's it. That's all.
So it doesn't matter that North Dakota has no chance of getting in.
Well, unless there's a quote unquote 5th team. And again, you look at them as a Big Sky team, reasonably so. I do too, basically. But I don't know that the committee does. They're an FCS independent. That's what they are. So I don't think, in that sense, I think it actually helps them because it doesn't look like, oh, well, is this the 5th team of the Big Sky Conference to go?
Yeah, but that doesn't help them because they have nobody to lobby for them.
I mean,
they have no one that's pushing the narrative.
That's fine, but let me just say this. There is no way that North Dakota is higher than Montana State at the end of all this. If Montana State loses to the Grizzlies on Saturday,
why not? Just because Montana State's been ranked higher all year because they have more national repute. I agree with what you're saying, and I am playing devil's advocate to a certain extent, but North Dakota has better wins than Montana State. They beat Montana State.
They beat Montana State. That's true.
They beat Sam Houston State, who's better than anybody Montana State's played this year, save maybe Southeast Missouri State. And again, this comes down to the argument, too, of I like judging wins based on what the team was when you beat them. Because Sam Houston has faded from the pack, and they're not going to make the playoffs. And they're going to finish 6-6 at best if they win their rivalry game this weekend. But Central Arkansas is really good. Do they play Central Arkansas? Regardless, Sam Houston is out of the playoffs. It doesn't mean it wasn't a good win when you beat a number 21 ranked team in the country in Grand Forks in the third game of the year. It's a good win for North Dakota. And Southeast Missouri State has surged since they lost to Montana State, but I don't necessarily know if they're better than Sam Houston. That's where this thing gets so convoluted. That's why this FCS playoff selection committee has such a tough job. But, I would like to – I guess what I'm saying is I agree with you that Montana State is in no matter what. Mm-hmm. I just don't necessarily know if I agree with that.
Well,
if you're just talking about the argument between North Dakota and Montana State, if you're making the assumption that Montana State loses and North Dakota wins. Otherwise, though, if Montana State wins, they're absolutely deserving. It's just Montana State's resume is devoid of that
the signature win.
Quality win. UC Davis should have been a signature win, but the Bobcats just got unlucky by the fact that UC Davis has struggled this year as well.
But again, all that stuff, what you are ultimately, to me, criticizing here is the unbalanced schedule.
Exactly.
And that's fine. Montana State can't control whether or not UC Davis in the second to last week of the season is a really good win or just a good win or maybe a bad win in other years. Certainly not a bad win this year. It's a good win. It's just not a great win. It's not a win over a ranked team or something like that. So they go on the road and get it done on Senior Day in Davis, California, which they did do. And they only also have, honestly, one bad loss. And if North Dakota's resume is...
What's Montana State's bad loss? Are you calling North Dakota? It's not a bad loss, though.
But that's what I'm saying.
I am criticizing the unbalanced schedule because here's where I'm at. I think based on talent and national reputation, Montana State is ranked adequately and properly right now. I also think on just straight up based on resume, I don't know how you can say Montana State's better than North Dakota.
But the other thing,
they're more talented, but the resume is better.
They're not 8-3; they're 8-2. The Texas Tech win is literally thrown out. It's in fact not accepted as a result at the FCS level when you're talking about the playoff stuff. They lost to Sacramento State, who is in line to be one of the Big Sky Conference champions and has been stem to stern the best team in the Big Sky Conference this season, and a loss to a good North Dakota State or a North Dakota team on the road, which again was a questionable loss nonetheless at the time that it happened. But that's it. Now the rest of the schedule, it is what it is, and they've won them all. Sutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We go now to the Rankish Brothers RV phone line. Hopefully we got somebody here who can sort this out for us, for crying out loud. We welcome in Greg Seitz. He's the athletic director at Jacksonville State. He is also the commissioner of the FCS Playoff Selection Committee. Greg, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate you taking the time. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys today?
We're doing great. We appreciate you being on with us very much. We're also very confused, and so we hope that you can help us out a little bit with this. Look, when it comes to putting this playoff bracket together at the FCS level and the season, everything that goes into it, what is the number one thing that the committee looks at when it comes down to ranking these teams and seeding them?
I'm not sure if there is one thing that we look at. Just to kind of give you an idea how this committee operates. The process, it's very subjective. The committee has 10 different people on there. All of them are athletic directors of the automatic qualifying conferences. And so each one of us, we feel like is an expert in college football, and that's why we're on the committee. We watch the games. We evaluate the data and statistics. And at the end, each expert, we use our judgment to rank the teams based on who each individual think is the best. So, when we get in that room, we push each other, we challenge each other. We want to be certain that we have it right at the end of the day. So, we go back and forth and and we debate and talk about teams and look at the resumes and results and the SRS and the just a lot of data that we have access to.
Greg, hey, Colter Nuanez here. Thanks so much for being with us. Explain to our listeners the way that where teams are located geographically influences the way that you guys create the playoff bracket.
Yeah, so what we end up doing is, it's a 24-team bracket. So we seed 1 through 8, regardless of what region, what part of the country. It doesn't matter what conference you come through. We want to seed the top 8 teams in the country. So once we have the top eight teams, we throw that into the 24-team bracket, and those teams receive a bye to the second round. Then what we do to build the bracket off of that is we determine the next teams. They're not ranked or anything. Now once we determine who the next teams are, we do base that on geography, and that's why you see a lot of times, you'll see the regional part in those first round games. So we try to, if you're within 400 miles, you're going to bus. If you're outside of that, you're going to take a flight. But that's not impacted to those top 8 seeds. So that's why, I know Montana State has a big game this weekend. That's why those teams want one of those top 8 spots. So they'll be at home, and the bracket is built off of that.
You mentioned busing or flying. I think that's another thing that maybe gets lost on the fans is just the fact that now that this is an NCAA regulated and sanctioned tournament, the NCAA is paying for the travel. So the saving money traveling wise is advantageous to everybody involved. But budget wise, how do you guys go about that element of things? How important is it to make sure that the NCAA is saving money and that there is an ability for, like you said, regional matchups, getting teams close together? How does the budget element of this whole process work?
Yeah, so each school that wants to host, every school puts a bid in to host, and once we build the bracket, we don't even look at the bids until we have the bracket set. Then we look and let's just say, for example, let's say that it's Montana and Montana State since they're playing this week. So then we're going to look at the bid process on that, and each team submits bids that they've been working on for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And then, that would be one of the factors. There's also other factors, quality of facility, and if you've hosted in the past, and, the revenue potential, obviously, your attendance history, your geographical location, all those things are taken into account. But, it's not all about saving money. It's also, from a regional aspect, it allows your fans, right, to travel if it's in a geographical location that both schools can get to. So that's another factor because, we're going to be playing that first week, and with Thanksgiving week come up, it's very hard to, if you're having to fly across country to get, allow fans the opportunity to go across and the families there. So that's another reason that we like to do the geographical matchups.
Greg Seitz joining us. He's the athletic director at Jacksonville State. He's also the commissioner of the FCS Playoff Selection Committee. And around here, obviously, the Cat Grizz football game is a big deal. And it's also this year having pretty significant national ramifications as well. When you look at a game like that, do you have a preconceived notion of, well, if Montana wins the game, here's what happens and here's the fallout of that. And if Montana State wins the game, here's what happens and here's the fallout of that?
For the last 4 weeks, we've been evaluating teams each week. So we have what we call a regional advisory committee. So out west, it includes the Southland Conference and the Big West Conference. And then, of course, North Dakota is an independent. So that's the makeup of the West, what we call RAC, which is Regional Advisory Committee. And so we've had, for the last 5 weeks, we've had calls every Monday, Tuesday, and we're evaluating teams within each RAC, and there's 4 of them across the country, but specifically out in the West. So there's athletic directors that are ranking those teams, and then that's provided to the national committee every Tuesday. And so we go through from a national standpoint. So we're certainly well aware of Montana and Montana State, and I think they were both ranked in our initial top 10, if I'm not mistaken, that we released publicly. So we're certainly aware of both of those teams, and we're not going to project who's going to win that. That's going to be decided on the field. But it's no doubt that the winner will, have an advantage when it comes to seeding, you would think, just because head-to-head is one of our criteria.
most years in the FCS, it's an 11-game schedule, but every 5 years, whenever there's the late Thanksgiving, a 12th game is allowed to be played by FCS schools. The fact that it sort of changes what we think of as baseline. Usually the magic number is 7, although there's been 6-win teams that have gotten in the bracket, maybe 1 or 2 since the bracket expanded recently. But mostly 7 Division I wins has been the baseline. But with an extra game, it seems like 8 is the baseline. But we were just arguing right before you came on the show, Greg, about a couple teams, Eastern Washington, North Dakota, namely, that if they were to win this weekend, would be 7-win teams. And it's interesting because, first of all, one, Eastern Washington would be a 7-5 team, but North Dakota would be a 7-4 team because they actually didn't play the 12 games. So just overall, how do you think the 12-game schedule impacts just the way that you guys analyze these things? And does it give a new magic number, so to speak, for teams to attain in terms of fortifying their resume?
Well, there's no doubt that it does give an extra opportunity, right? So, each school, there's parts of the schedule they can control and they can't control, right? They can't control their conference schedule. And I know in the Big Sky, it's an unbalanced schedule, and and sometimes, you don't play everybody. So it may be a year that Eastern Washington is really good and Montana's really good, but just because of the way the schedule falls out, they don't play. So the part of the schedule that the teams do control is that out-of-conference schedule. And this year, with the 12-game schedule, it allowed FCS schools an opportunity to go ahead and schedule another good out-of-conference game. And, being the athletic director of Jacksonville State, I'm very familiar with Eastern Washington because we played them this year.
Right.
So they actually came to Jacksonville, and, that's a game that normally we probably wouldn't get to play, but because it was a 12-game schedule, it allowed, a lot of teams to get that extra game. Now, some schools choose to play an extra FBS game or an extra money game, and then, that's certainly taken into account. But I think you guys, probably talked about it. There was only 3 FCS wins over FBS schools this year. So, that's the lowest number since 2008. But I think just having the opportunity to play another FCS opponent, the committee will certainly look at that and see how they fared in those games.
Greg, at the FBS level, of course, they release the standings publicly that the committee has every week from the time they start doing it. The FCS level, the committee releases it once publicly and then again at the end. Is there what's the rationale for that, and is there a scenario you think in the future where it might be a weekly thing where people would be able to see? Because there is, I think, a pretty significant difference from what a stats poll or a hero poll might show compared to what the actual committee is coming up with.
Yeah, and just so you know, just the criteria that that the committee uses as we're looking at in selecting teams is we look at the win-loss record, we look at the strength of schedule, the eligibility and availability of student athletes. We also look at comparative data of individual teams, including the overall record, the records against each other, head-to-head, common opponents, and then we do use the FCS coaches poll and also the SRS system, which will be released a little later on Sunday afternoon after selection. So the data that we receive, allows each individual to go in and rank those teams. And, we released that top 10 about 3 weeks out just to let the public know and the FCS community know, hey, this is where the committee is at this point in time. There's still a lot of football to be played from the moment that we released. I think we released it this year on November the 5th all the way up through Selection Sunday. So that's just a snapshot and point in time at that date of November the 5th of, hey, if we released it today and announced it, here's our top 10 teams.
What's the process going to be like on Sunday when you guys are putting this whole thing together?
Saturday night,
Saturday
right,
night,
all the way
Sunday. How hectic is it? Do you have any early indications? I mean, I'm sure that there's some teams that are probably solidified seeds, like North Dakota State, James Madison. I know that could be in flux if they were to somehow get upset on the last Saturday of the season. But what's the actual physical process of putting this thing together going to be like for you and the committee, Greg?
Yeah, so it's it's just an exciting day. I mean, we'll get in the committee room in Indianapolis around 2:00, and we'll begin watching football games, and that's Eastern time. So we're there from 2:00, and this is my 4th year on the committee, and we've been in that room as late as 2:30 to 3 a.m. just finalizing that bracket. Honestly, the top 10, 12 teams, those are the easy ones, right? They're getting in. North Dakota State, James Madison, this year Montana State, those teams are going to get in. It's the ones that, as we discussed a little earlier today, it's those 7-5 teams and 8-4 teams. And so as we spend time, we'll go around the room. Those last 2 or 3 in, those are the teams that we're going to spend literally 2 or 3 hours just discussing. Hey, how do we get those last 2 in? And you got the first 4 out, and the last 4 in. Those are the teams that we spend the majority of our time on.
Well, I'll tell you what, Greg, it's a fun time of year, certainly, and we appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to what the committee comes up with at about 4 a.m. Sunday morning, okay, and sends that out to all of us. We certainly appreciate you being with us, and good luck on what I know is a hectic week. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks so much. So what's the weather going to be for the game Saturday?
42, sunny, just about right.
About 50 degrees hotter than it normally is.
Exactly.
Well, I remember we were in the committee room last year, watching that game, and, of course, we knew in the room the winner was more likely getting in, and, Montana jumped out to the lead, and Montana State came back and ended up winning. But I remember, there was snow coming down and all. Well, I'll tell you, I'm in Alabama, and it is 73 degrees today, and I'm not sure I want to come out to Montana in December and play. I'm not sure our guys would enjoy that.
Well, it has there is precedence. There have been some Southern schools that have played some pretty cold weather games and actually figured it out in Montana a time or two. But yeah, it is. You got plenty of soup and hot chocolate.
Oh yeah. Well, I bet there's not many teams that figure it out when they come out. 'Cause I tell you, that atmosphere at both places is just incredible, and I know that. Both teams. I know Saturday's game is going to be a very exciting game for both fan bases.
Well, no doubt, and we certainly look forward to it. Well, Greg, appreciate the time very much, and we'll see if we can maybe catch up again down the line, maybe after the rankings are out, and see what actually transpires, okay?
Yeah, that sounds great. Look forward to it.
Thanks so much. Greg Seitz joining us. He's the, Jacksonville State Athletic Director who moonlights as the commissioner of the selection committee for the FCS football playoffs. So it's great to have him on. Appreciate that very much. And, yeah, he kind of elucidates it a little bit. And like he says, look, man, there's 15 teams right now, I can tell you, are in the playoffs. And it's the last 8 or whatever that you really try and figure it out. But also, it is interesting, Coulter. Everybody goes, well, if you get a seed, you get a bye. That's the big deal. Well, that is a big deal. But it's also everything else. The entire bracket, the seeds get everything. They get the home game. They don't worry about travel in terms of geography or whatever. Whereas if you don't get a seed, you could be on the short end of a stick. That's why we've seen some teams that were clearly better teams and probably even higher ranked teams have to go on the road and play in tough places and lose in the first round because they didn't have either, the finances, or they just happened to be in a city that was too close to another city, and that's where you end up going. And you leave a lot to chance. I say you, it's not anybody's choice other than the committees, I understand, but if you're not in those top 8, that's the only certainty. Are those top 8 seeds that we're playing at home and it's a bye. Now, Montana State have the advantage where if they're playing in the first round of the playoffs, it's going to be a home game for them. It just is. The finances dictate that that's the case and so on. But, a team like Southern Utah won the Big Sky Conference, had to go on the road in the first round of the playoff. It's crazy. It's not crazy, but that's what it is. So that seed, huge deal. Stu Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Hey, why don't you give us a call, 329-1899. The phone number, 329-1899. Wing It Wednesday. We got some trivia questions for you. We'll send you over to the Desperado Sports Tavern for the best wings in the city of Missoula. 3 questions. You get them right, you got yourself some wings. We'll do it right after this. 329-1899.
Gather your friends and family and join the Montana Club for their annual Thanksgiving feast, featuring succulent oven-roasted turkey or tender, juicy prime rib, and all the mouth-watering sides. And don't forget the pie. Enjoy home-style pecan, pumpkin, or pumpkin cheesecake to top off your meal. Thanksgiving feast starts at 11 a.m., and they'll also offer their full menu as well. Open 8 to 7 Thanksgiving Day. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Thank you for making Polaris America's best-selling off-road brand. During the Polaris Great American Thank You event, financing is as low as 3.99% and rebates go as high as $3,500. Live life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle everything from mountains to mud holes in a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger or elevate your adventure in a versatile Polaris General. Now is the time to get the season's best deals on America's best-selling off-road lineup with financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months and rebates up to $3,500 during the Polaris Great American Thank You at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Get to Kurtz Polaris on Saturday, December 7th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for Kurt's 7th annual Snow Day. This is the biggest sale of the year, one day only, Saturday, December 7th at Kurtz Polaris in Missoula. Kurt's 7th annual Snow Day. Rebates valid in U.S. through 12/31/19 on new 2016 through 2020 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
Americans waste 3.8 million gallons of gas by idling every single day. Idling for more than 10 seconds actually uses more fuel and produces more emissions than stopping and restarting your engine.
Vehicle exhaust contributes to smog, climate change, and poor air quality, heightening the risk of developing asthma and lung disease. Kids and seniors are especially vulnerable to these health risks.
So next time you're stopped for more than 10 seconds at the train, getting coffee, or picking your child up from school, please turn your vehicle off.
Brought to you by Missoula in Motion.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from your favorite daily sports talk show, Two Tell Nuanez. I'm here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom, last winter I got a sweet car starter. It's something I think everybody needs.
You know, Colter, I couldn't agree more, and my wife sure thinks so too. We've got a lot of sweet deals. We actually have it capable now where you can start it from your phone from anywhere you'd like. We have two-way remotes that'll confirm to you the vehicle started all the way down to our basic package starting at just $299 installed. Come on in and check us out.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colter Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. Representative Greg Gianforte and 105 other members of Congress have decided to pinch hit for minor league baseball. In a letter sent to MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred, the members of the Congress expressed their opposition to MLB's proposal to cut the affiliations of 42 minor league teams, including the 3 Pioneer League teams in Missoula, Billings, and Great Falls.
One of the issues facing both Missoula and Billings is if the Paddleheads and Mustangs disappear, how would they pay for their respective ballparks? Under the current deal in Missoula, the Paddleheads pay $40,000 a year to play Ogren Park at Allegiance Field, while Logjam Productions pays $70,000 annually. If minor league baseball left the Garden City, Missoula would be on the hook for $40,000 per year.
The Montana State men's basketball team held a 6-point lead late in the second half at Grand Canyon University, but the hosts ended the game on a 21-2 run over the final 6 minutes, 27 seconds, and finished off with a 69-56 victory. Montana State ends its 3-week-long road trip with a 3-1 record. They moved to 4-2 overall, and MSU is back in home beginning November 26th against Colorado Christian.
And finally, the Montana Lady Grizz also played Grand Canyon Tuesday, defeating the Antelopes 72-67 at Dahlberg Arena. Mackenzie Johnston led the charge with 19 points and 5 assists.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
You know, Colter, everybody wants to know what's the best mascot, what's the worst mascot. If I was going to tell you, though, the most average mascot, Antelope, would be in that conversation.
Why?
Nondescript, man.
Antelopes are cool animals. What do you mean? They're like so athletic and fast.
I mean, okay.
I mean, if we're going to do this, like, what mascot represents, like, elusiveness or whatever it might be, there's a lot less impressive mascots than antelopes,
but also a lot more. I mean, you're telling me.
I mean, an antelope would waste a bulldog in almost every form or fashion because there's no way a bulldog could ever catch it.
And a cheetah would waste an antelope in every form or fashion. That's all I'm saying. Like, it's the middle. Plus, a bulldog is lovable and happy, and an antelope is just, I mean, it's.
Aren't all the bulldogs grumpy with their little grumpy face?
Yeah, that's what's fun about them.
Bulldog, the most common mascot in American sports. How about that?
Yeah, and I think number 2 is Wildcat. I think.
What is that? That's
What's a Nittany lion, for crying out loud?
Nittany lion is a mountain lion that roams through the Nittany Valley.
Okay, I mean,
you spelled Nittany so wrong on Twitter when you were trying to talk smack to me about Penn State a couple weeks ago. It made me so happy.
I don't think it was Twitter.
It was Twitter. You said something about like the second most shocking thing that happened today was the Nittany, Nitney.
Yeah, Nittany.
It's Nittany.
Nittany. You're
the most most well-read, most verbose, best orating person I've ever met that cannot spell. It is crazy.
Can't spell.
You just read a 1,200-page book. I don't know any modern-day humans that read that long of books. You just read a whole one and you still can't spell.
Ryan, R-I-I-N. Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula. Go there on Saturday, December 7th for their 7th annual snow day. One day only, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Kurtz Polaris. It's time now for our Wing It Wednesday. We welcome in Russ to the show. Russ, how are you?
I'm good.
Great, Russ. Thanks for being with us. Here's the deal, my friend. You got 3 questions coming to you right now. If you get 2 of them right, you got yourself a basket of wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. If you get all 3, you're going to get a shirt as well. If you need help on any of these, Coulter is your lifeline. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, it does.
Boy, some chicken wings would really hit the spot. Tell me likey. Tell me what wingy.
All right, good contribution. I love it, Russ. Okay, here we go. As you may, I mean, I didn't even tell you what this was about, but I think it should be pretty obvious. I mean, it's Cat Grizz Week, for crying out loud. You know what I mean, Russ? This is what we're doing around here today. So here you go. Question number 1. How many times has Montana played Montana State in football?
What'd you say?
You got to say.
I got my daughter helping me.
Oh, that's good. That's help. That's a little built-in lifeline right there. It's a literal lifeline. You get it, Coulter?
My daughter said once every year is her answer.
It's amazing how you can be so very right.
I heard it the other day. I want to say 119.
They have played 118 times. This is 119, but guess what?
That's good enough.
You're all over it. Of course we're giving it to you. This is number 119. By the way, Coulter, have they played in the postseason?
Montana State, never.
That is remarkable.
Is it?
Yes. We'll get back to that. Excellent work on question number 1. Here you go. Question number 2. How many times did Montana beat Montana State from 1985 to 2002?
Consecutively,
yes. The answer, your daughter could also say all of them, or once every year. Yes.
Yeah, she's saying lifeline, so we're going to think about it here for a second.
Okay.
I'm thinking consecutive wins, you're saying?
Yep.
The streak.
From
the streak
1985 to 2002.
How long was the streak?
Man, I kind of want to say 0, but we'll go lifeline on this one.
Coulter, help him out.
Between 1985 and 2002, Montana beat Montana State 16 consecutive times. The streak is what it was known as. Coincided with the opening of Washington Grizzly Stadium, the hiring of Don Reed, the subsequent firing of Dave Arnold, Earl Salmonson, and Cliff Heisel at Montana State.
So 16 is what we're talking about.
Right
okay. You don't have to recite all the other stuff. That's all ancillary. What we want to know is, do you accept 16 as the final number of consecutive wins for the Grizzlies during that time?
I do. Yeah, 0 was way off, but growing up, I just don't ever remember them beating us back then, so as 0. But yeah, I'll accept 16.
Well, who's us? When you refer to us, are you talking about Montana or Montana State?
I'm talking about Grizz.
Yeah, I think you misunderstood the question. They didn't beat you guys not one time. You've
gotten it right. You're understanding
won
it correctly.
16 straight games.
You are correct. Russ, congratulations. You've gotten yourself a basket of wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. Third and final question, okay, for you and your daughter. What's your daughter's name, Russ?
It's Marley. We've called her.
Oh, Marley. Okay.
Now the baseball
Marley's
card,
my
that's
girl
right.
there. Okay, here we go. Question number 3. Name the coach of the Grizzlies the year the, quote, streak, which we just discussed, ended with Montana State's 10-7 win in Missoula in 2002. So the Cats beat the Grizz in 2002. Mike Kramer was the head coach of the Montana State Bobcats in that football game, who's going to join us here in about 20 minutes. Who was the coach of the Grizzlies in that football game, though, in 2002?
Was it my only guess? I forgot all the other names. I'm just going to go Bobby Houck, but I didn't think he ever lost to him. But that's my answer. Bobby Houck. He's the only one I can think of.
You're very close, but Bobby Houck had not yet come on board as the head coach. Joe Glenn was still the head coach of that football team, the 10-7 win for Montana State. But, hey, you know what? You and Marley got wings, so you're going to go enjoy yourselves with a nice either a garlic or a teriyaki or some kind of very nice wing deal over there at the Desperado, okay?
Thank you, guys. Love the show.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks, Marley.
Bye.
Got to meet Marley once upon a time. Sweet girl.
Called
Sweet
in. She had a
girl.
great take on Steph Curry.
Yes.
I actually just pulled a couple nice Steph Curry cards from my recent trip to my number one addiction, Zootown Sports Cards.
Oh, boy.
And,
you can do a lot worse. You know what I mean?
You can.
When it comes to vices, sports cards are great.
Man, I love that. I just won an auction down there.
You did, dude.
Nick Bosa, dude. I got Nick Bosa autographed. Dude, I'm jacked about this.
Absolutely unbelievable.
I am jacked about this. That was a good buy, man. That's a good investment. That's like buying low and the stock skyrockets the next day.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Hey, who is the most impactful player for each team in the Brawl of the Wild on Saturday? Well, we'll discuss that right after this. Hey, winter driving. It is, as we know, difficult to do. There's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of ice, snow, and stuff on the roads. Get yourself a car detailing. Yes, that's right, a car detailing from Shine Auto Detailing. Okay, your car is going to look great. It's going to be all perfect inside and out. That's nice, and then it won't last, right? Well, that is somewhat true. But guess what? They're going to put a ceramic coating on that thing and protect it. So when all the dirt and the mud and the ice and the rocks and the sand kick up into your car, you're not going to have any chips. You're not going to have any problems. You go get your deluxe auto detailing from Shine Auto Detailing right now and protect your investment, protect your vehicle, and they will also throw in a headlamp restoration for free with any detailing that they do. Online at MissoulaAutoDetailing.com. Go schedule it out today. Shine Auto Detailing.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires. Well, more like Les Schwab alignment and brakes and shocks and wheels and tires. Now, some tire places don't offer all that. They only sell tires. And we're not sure how they sleep at night because all those services affect things like steering and stopping. That's why we offer more than tires to help keep you safe. Stop by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Do you know what's at stake after a car accident? Not only will you have to deal with pushy insurance companies, auto repair shops, endless doctor's appointments, and dozens of unforeseen problems, but also your normal day-to-day life. I'm Coulter here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys, and she knows how hard this can be.
That's right. And with all of that, it can seem tempting to take the quick settlement that the insurance company is offering. But I can tell you from experience that it is not going to be a fair amount. I see it all the time where someone has settled with the insurance company and months later realizes that they still have pain from the accident. And now they're having to pay those bills out of their pocket. I don't want that to happen to anyone.
So what should our listeners do, Catherine?
Give us a call and discuss your situation with an attorney. The call is free and we'll gladly talk about your situation with you. If you have a case that we can help with, you will owe us nothing out of pocket. We actually make the insurance company pay for us to help you.
There you have it. Call the Advocates at 406-640-4444 or go online, MontanaAdvocates.com. You deserve the Advocates on your side.
The biggest season in sports is shifting into overdrive, and the Desperado Sports Tavern has the fuel you need to make it to the finish line. By now, you've heard that the Despo serves the best wings around, but did you know they have a full menu with burgers, nachos, chicken strips, sandwiches, cheese sticks, and even steaks? Fill your tank, then wash it down with an ice-cold beverage or two. Keep your head in the game with 32 HD TVs and room for the whole crew. The Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
This is Tom Skerritt for the Borgen Project. Each year, nearly 2 million children die from preventable diseases. Each day, 30,000 people die from hunger. 500 each hour are children. The Borgen Project is turning this around. We need your help. To learn more, go to BorgenProject.org. That's BORGEN project.org.
Are you interested in putting solar panels on your roof? Do you want the latest on Montana's renewable energy policies? The Montana Renewable Energy Association is a leading voice for renewable energy, education, and advocacy in Montana. From community-based clean energy events to advocating at the Montana legislature, they work to ensure Montana's future is powered by the sun, wind, and earth. Find out more about MREA and join as a member by visiting montanarenewables.org or calling 406-214-9405.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Hi. How are you? Good? Glad to hear it. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, and Saturday, December the 7th, their 7th annual snow day, one day only. That is December 7th. Kurtz Polaris is going to save, well, all the money you possibly can in one day, and get your whole Christmas list marked off as well. As we roll downhill here in hour number one, we wanted to talk about the brawl this weekend, the Cat Grizz football game on Saturday, and talk about who is the most important player for each team in this weekend. And of course, there's a bunch of different answers, and I think it's worth pointing out that the best player and the most important player are two different questions, and certainly that could be the case, that the person, and by the way, who is the best player on each team, obviously no sure thing necessarily either. But when you talk about who's the most important player on a particular football team, in a particular game, I think it can change week to week. And in this one, I think it's a very, very open conversation. When you talk about Montana State, I mean, obviously Troy Anderson is always going to be one of, if not the best player on the team, and also a very important player. I think what's as important as anything when you talk about Troy Anderson is his health. I mean, again, if you watch the UC Davis game, he went down in the first half clearly in great pain in his shoulder, and he's got the brace that he's got on that thing anyway. We don't know exactly what happened, but certainly compromised in that respect. Then you talk about Tucker Rovig at quarterback. I mean, is he the best player? No. Is he going to be a hugely important factor into what goes on Saturday? Of course he will be. I think that might be a really good answer. Travis Johnson, Isaiah Ifanse, all valid. You also include guys like Bryce Stirk, or who's going to come along and make a big play in that secondary, maybe Braden Conkle, something like that. So, Coulter, when we talk about Montana State and who's the most important player for each team, or you know who I think is really the most important player for Montana State? I think it's Tucker Rovig.
Interesting.
Because Tucker, all the other guys, I think you know what you're going to get out of them. If Tucker Rovig comes out and plays a great football game, Montana State is going to be in a great position to win. If he comes out and gets lambasted, which Montana has been trying to do to every quarterback that they've played, succeeded. Yeah, you're right. It's going to be, they will not be able to use him anymore. I mean, they just won't be able. They will not. It will become utterly one-dimensional, which, by the way, I don't think is a bad thing necessarily for Montana State. The key for Tucker Rovig is he going to make errors that lead to obviously turnovers in the form of interception or strip sacks and things like that, but also if you got a wide-open guy out in the flat that's going to get you a 4-yard gain, you have to make that play. Have to. Because if it's all of a sudden now 2nd and 10 or 3rd and 7 when it should have been 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 2, it's the world of difference.
Totally. I agree with the sentiment. I also think that because of this game, because of the magnitude of the matchup, but also combined with the fact that, I mean, let's be honest, Montana State's playing with house money in this game. They're at home, they're on a 3-game winning streak, and they've already made the playoffs. They don't have to win to get in. They don't have to win to deny the Grizz a playoff berth. Neither of those things.
But do you think there is such a thing as house money in this game? Because I don't.
Man. What I'm getting at.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's all true.
What I'm getting at is that Montana State is not going to let Tucker Rovig lose this game for them. If it comes down to it, they'll put Troy Anderson at quarterback. They'll put Travis Johnson at quarterback. They'll put every dude at quarterback. If Tucker Rovig is clearly melting down, it ain't happening. The other thing is, I think that the way that you negate what Montana does on defense is the quarterback run game, which is why Montana State has won this game 3 years in a row. And I still think that's a vulnerability, even though the scheme under Kent Baer is much different than it was under Jason Seymour. It has similar principles in terms of negative plays, heating you up. It's just not nearly as vulnerable. And also, I just think the safeties are just better tacklers. But I think the most important player in this game is Travis Johnson, because I think that Travis Johnson is at his best, one of, if not the most electric athletes in the league. I mean, last week against UC Davis, he was playing Wildcat quarterback. He mishandled the snap. He screwed up the play fake. He ran the wrong direction, and he cut up field and scored a 75-yard touchdown, and he looked like an Olympic sprinter. The guy is a freak athlete. It's why he was one of the top recruits in the nation coming out of high school.
If not for Troy Anderson, everyone would talk about Travis Johnson all the time.
Troy Anderson straight up told me that I was like, Troy, I know you're a humble guy, but you know how athletic you are. And he kind of just like smirked, and I was like, well, who's the best athlete in the Big Sky Conference? And he goes, it's Travis Johnson. It's not even close. He said the first time that I ever saw Travis Johnson, he's like, I didn't realize that he played for us. He's like, I thought he played for Fish. He said because the first time
playing basketball.
He said because the first time I ever saw him was in an open gym playing basketball. And this guy's like 360 dunking. He's like, sweet man, Cat's got a new player. And in reality, it was the new do everything guy. And the thing about Travis Johnson is there's very few players that you can find in college. I mean, Troy Anderson, a touchdown on a tackle for loss every week for a month. That's an insane stat. But also, you'd be hard-pressed to find a dude who's got 500 yards rushing and 500 yards receiving in the same year who's not a running back, who's a receiver.
Yeah. No, it's
and who doesn't really have anybody to throw him the ball, yet he still makes it happen. I mean, he gets a big chunk play or two. And last year, Troy Anderson deserves a ton of credit. All the defensive players on Montana State deserve a ton of credit. But it was Travis Johnson that sparked that win. He caught 11 passes in the second half for a team that couldn't throw the ball. His deep shot over the top to set up Troy Anderson's first touchdown, that was the first hit to the dam. And then when the dam broke, I mean, it was Travis Johnson that was moving the sticks. It was Travis Johnson that was getting the big plays over the middle. They're going to need him because they need him to loosen up everything that's in the middle. Dante Olson is going to wreak havoc. He's just going to. It's the perfect matchup for him. A team that loves to run the ball early and often. He's saying, licking his lips, let's go. I'll get 20 tackles if you want me to. But making a little money behind Dante Olson or on the perimeter, that's going to be the key for Montana State. That's why Travis Johnson is such a key.
We're going to continue this conversation at the end of the show and talk about Montana and who the most important player is for them. I don't think it's in doubt who the most important player is for the Grizzlies in this football game, but we will have that conversation nonetheless. There's a bunch of guys who it's going to be important to. And also, especially for Montana State, man, it's so much about health. If Isaiah Fonse is good to go, it's huge. If Troy Anderson is 85% compared to 55%, it's a major, major difference. And also if he can even play quarterback in that way repeatedly on Saturday, if he's physically capable, we'll find out. Talk more about who is the most impactful player for both these teams in the next hour. But next, we got to do a Wing It Wednesday, and then the big human, Mike Kramer, subject of our ESPN Roundtable, all of it coming at you in hour number 2. It's 2 till Nuanez, 329-1899. Call right now. We'll do a Wing It Wednesday, 329-1899, the phone number. And Coulter has 3 Cat Grizz questions for you coming at you. You go.
Cat theme.
Cat theme. Okay. Cat theme. Good. Head over to the Desperado Sports Tavern with some wings right after this. Alpine Touch has been part of the fabric of Montana for more than 60 years. Decades ago, Russell Street started selling his touch of magic in whitefish. Years later, Alpine Touch's all-purpose seasoning remains a favorite. It's tailgating season, and there's no better way to spice up your grill before a Grizz game than with Alpine Touch. Go to alpinetouch.com now and use the checkout code ESPN10 for a 10% discount on your order. Alpine Touch is here to keep your mouth watering all football season. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Gather your friends and family and join the Montana Club for their annual Thanksgiving feast, featuring succulent oven-roasted turkey or tender, juicy prime rib, and all the mouth-watering sides. And don't forget the pie. Enjoy home-style pecan, pumpkin, or pumpkin cheesecake to top off your meal. Thanksgiving feast starts at 11 a.m., and they'll also offer their full menu as well. Open 8 to 7 Thanksgiving Day. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Black Friday is coming, and for the hunter or gun enthusiast on your list, the best Black Friday sale is once again at Selway Armory. Selway Armory's annual Black Friday sale is the stuff of legends, with tons of inventory at and even below cost. Put Selway Armory on your schedule and get there this Black Friday and Saturday for the sale of the year on firearms, ammunition, and accessories. Get to the store at 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6 behind IHOP on North Reserve. Selway Armory's Black Friday sale, the best there is.
At Florence Coffee Company, we invite you to try our extraordinary drip coffee. Our drip coffee is made from our signature blend, which is a medium roast, bold but very smooth, representing Indonesia, Central, and South America. Florence Coffee Co. promises satisfaction in every cup of this perfect blend of the highest quality beans available. Stop by and try a cup today and visit us at florencecoffeeco.com.
You've been auditioning at the dinner table for years. Are you finally ready to hit the stage? Arts Missoula and ASUM are teaming up again to showcase the best of the region's high school talent at First Night Spotlight. Audition at Hellgate or Big Sky after school on December 2nd and 5th, respectively. Or for Sentinel, Willard, and surrounding schools, tryouts will be held 11:30 a.m. Saturday, December 7th at the UC Theater. The best of the best will be invited to perform live on New Year's Eve. To sign up for First Night Spotlight tryouts, go to artsmissoula.org.
If you are hurt or disabled, you may be entitled to benefits from an insurance company or Social Security. I'm Chris Helmer, an attorney at Clark Fork Law Offices. Our Missoula firm specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. There are many unknowns when injured or disabled. The other side is fighting hard. You should too. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Representative Greg Gianforte is one of 106 members of Congress that have decided to try and pinch hit for minor league baseball. In a letter sent to MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred, the Commissioner of Congress, the members of Congress expressed their opposition to MLB's proposal to cut the affiliation of 42 minor league teams, including the 3 Pioneer League teams in Missoula, Billings, and Great Falls.
One of the issues facing both Missoula and Billings is if the Paddleheads and Mustangs disappear, how would they pay for their respective ballparks? Under the current deal in Missoula, the Paddleheads pay $40,000 a year to play at Ogren Park at Allegiance Field, while Logjam Productions pays $70,000 annually. If minor league baseball left the Garden City, Missoula would be on the hook for that $40K.
In basketball news, the Montana State men's team, who was on a 4-game winning streak, had a 6-point lead late in the second half at Grand Canyon University, but the hosts ended up on a 21-2 run over the final 6.5 minutes in a 69-56 win. Montana State ends its week-long road trip with a 3-1 record to move to 4-2 overall. MSU has a 3-game homestand beginning on November 26th against Colorado Christian.
And finally, the Montana Lady Grizz also played Grand Canyon Tuesday, defeating the Antelopes 72-67 at Dahlberg Arena. Mackenzie Johnson scored 19 points and dished out 5 assists. Fellow senior Emma Stockholm added 15 points and 9 rebounds.
This ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork Law.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Happy to be with all of you on a fabulous Wednesday afternoon. Welcome to the end of your workday. Thanks for letting us escort you on down the aisle. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. December 7th, Kurt's 7th annual snow day. 1 day only, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You're going to save all the money in the world on that one day. Get everything on your Christmas list and more at Kurtz Polaris. Coulter, by the way, if you miss anything in the first hour, fun first hour, check it out on the podcast. The Tutel Nuanez podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts, so go listen to it at the podcast. It's brought to us by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Coming up in about 10 minutes from now, Mike Kramer, former head coach, all over the place in the Big Sky, Idaho State, Eastern Washington, and also Montana State. But it would be a fun guest, a guy who knows the Big Sky really well, who knows the rivalry really well, and fun to talk to. So his roundtable coming up here with us in just a moment. But right now, we go to the Ragish Brothers RV phone line. We welcome in Brian to the show for a Wing It Wednesday. Hi, Brian. How are you?
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
We're doing great. We're, are you kidding me? It's the Wednesday before Cat Grizz. Can't be better than this, unless it was Saturday, I guess. So we're doing outstanding. Hey, we got 3 questions for you. If you get 2 of them, you got yourself a basket of wings to the Desperado. If you get all 3, you're going to get a shirt. If you need help on these are Coulter's questions. So I am your lifeline, all right?
Let's do it.
Boy, some chicken wings would really hit the spot.
You there?
Tell me one wingy.
We're here, Brian. We're just playing a little sound there. We're just getting a little intro going for you there. Now, are you going to this football game by any chance? Are you going to watch the game somewhere? What's your plans for Saturday?
So I've been to the last 3, so I'm going to sit this one out. So hopefully I give the Grizz a little bit of good juju.
Oh, see, so you're a Grizz fan, and what you're saying, you're taking responsibility here, is what I'm hearing out of you. You're saying this was my fault. I attended the last 3. I'm out on this one. We'll see if it changes.
I'm out. Let's do it. Yeah.
Very good, Brian. Well, here we go. We got some Cat Grizz themed questions for you. These are Coulter's questions. They are cat-ish in their themes today. All right, Coulter, here we go. Question number 1. What do you got?
All right, Brian, number 1. These are Cat Grizz questions that are a little bit on the side of the Montana State Bobcats. So number 1, I guess this is actually just the
neighbors.
Number 1 is just
the neighbors.
Number 1 is just a broad question. It actually has nothing to do with Cats or Grizz. Who has to do with both? Who was the last home team to win a Cat Grizz game?
The last home team. I'm going to say the Grizz.
Now, let's just think. Now, you've been to the last 3, right?
I have. Oh, yep, I have.
See, I knew this was going to happen because when you asked me this question, I started rifling through. I was like, my goodness, because I know the road team has won like 8 of the last 10. So the road team wins all these things, but you know the answer, Brian. What is it?
I'm going to say the Grizz.
Still the Cats. 2 years ago in Bozeman.
Yep, still the Cats.
They won 3 straight.
Oh, shit. That's right. I was at the game.
Yeah, you were at the game, Brian. You were at the game. It's true. It is true.
I was kind of at the game, I guess.
Having a good time in Bozeman.
You're kind of at the Desperado trivia game too. Here, all right, here we go. You're fine. Rock and roll. You still got a lifeline here. Question number 2.
All right, number 2. Name this Montana State quarterback who led the Bobcats to 3 wins in 4 tries over the Grizzlies between 2002 and 2005. The Montana State quarterback.
Travis Lulay.
Travis Lulay is correct.
Look at you. He's got Travis Lulay on tap. Goes 0 for 2 on a 50-50 question, which is a hard thing to do. It's impressive. All right, question number 3 for you, Brian. Here we go. What do you got, Coulter?
All right, number 3. This is a little bit hard. You might have to do a little bit of math, so use your good memory.
Oh, boy.
Since Montana State snapped the streak, which was a 16-game streak with the Grizzlies beating the Bobcats. That happened between 1985 and 2001. 16 straight wins for Montana. What is the record between the two schools? So they've played 17 times heading into Saturday since the streak ended. What is the
9-8?
9-8 is
Look
correct.
at this. Not even a lifeline. Brian, you missed the layup, but you buried the three-pointer and the half-court shot.
Right.
So you are in great shape. You got yourself wings to the Desperado, my man.
Nice.
Very well done. Very well done. Give your information to David there in the back, and we'll get you set up with all of that, all right?
Sounds good. Thanks, fellas.
You got it. You got it. I mean, sometimes you just can't make it up, man. All-timer right there. It's too good. And you got Lule 9 and 8, like, I mean, just nothing. Done.
Yep.
Was at the game less than 2 years ago. Said he was at the game. Couldn't get there.
I mean, if you're a Grizz fan, it's probably a good one to black out.
I mean, clearly he thought so. Mike Kramer next.
Alpine Touch has been part of the fabric of Montana for more than 60 years. Decades ago, Russell Street started selling his touch of magic in whitefish. Years later, Alpine Touch's all-purpose seasoning remains a favorite. It's tailgating season, and there's no better way to spice up your grill before a Grizz game than with Alpine Touch. Go to alpinetouch.com now and use the checkout code ESPN10 for a 10% discount on your order. Alpine Touch is here to keep your mouth watering all football season. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up.
Joining your friends for a little get-together? Stop by your local Town Pump. Pick up a 12-pack of Bud, Miller, and Coors cans, 2 for $20, mix and match. While you're there, you may as well grab a bag of Ruffles Double XL chips, 2 for $6. Need it fast? Stop by Town Pump. There's one right down the road from you.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Americans waste 3.8 million gallons of gas by idling every single day. Idling for more than 10 seconds actually uses more fuel and produces more emissions than stopping and restarting your engine.
Vehicle exhaust contributes to smog, climate change, and poor air quality, heightening the risk of developing asthma and lung disease. Kids and seniors are especially vulnerable to these health risks.
So next time you're stopped for more than 10 seconds at the train, getting coffee, or picking your child up from school, please turn your vehicle off.
Brought to you by Missoula in Motion.
This is Tom Skerritt for the Borgen Project. Each year, nearly 2 million children die from preventable diseases. Each day, 30,000 people die from hunger. 500 each hour are children. The Borgen Project is turning this around. We need your help. To learn more, go to BorgenProject.org. That's BORGEN project.org.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. Representative Greg Gianforte of Montana and 105 other members of Congress have decided to pinch hit for minor league baseball. In a letter sent to MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred, the members of Congress expressed their opposition to MLB's proposal to cut the affiliations of 42 minor league teams, including the 3 pioneer teams in Montana, Missoula, Great Falls, and Billings.
One of the issues facing Missoula and Billings, if the Paddleheads and the Mustangs disappear, would be how to pay for the respective ballparks. Under the current deal, in Missoula, the Paddleheads pay $40,000 a year to play at Ogren Park Allegiance Field, while Logjam Productions pays $70,000 annually. If the minor league baseball team left the Garden City, Missoula would be on the hook for $40,000 per year.
In basketball news, the Montana State men's team held a 6-point lead late in the second half at Grand Canyon University, but the Antelopes,
that's right,
went on a 21-2 run over the final 6.5 minutes, finished with a 69-56 win, handing Montana State their first loss in their last 5 games. They're now 4-2 overall. MSU, a 3-game homestand, begins November 26th against Colorado Christian.
And finally, Lady Grizz also beat Grand Canyon Tuesday, defeating the Antelopes 72-67 in Missoula. Mackenzie Johnson led the way, 19 points, 5 assists.
Boys and girls, Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Hi, how are you? Good to be with you. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula. Go there Saturday, December the 7th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Free coffee, free lunch, and savings that you will not believe. It's the snow day. It's the 7th annual one. Biggest sale of the entire year. One day only at Kurtz Polaris. If you'd like to listen live and you're out of market or it's just easier for you on your phone, tablet, device, what have you, 1029ESPN.com. That's where you go. You stream the show each and every day. In fact, you can stream the station anytime you'd like to. 1029ESPN.com. Listen live on the Listen Live tab. It's brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. It is time now for our weekly ESPN Roundtable presented by Paradise Falls, and we're very, very happy today to have with us Mike Kramer. And Coulter, Mike Kramer is a guy who I think most people who are sports fans, certainly who have been sports fans for a while in the state of Montana, will know who he is. He played at Idaho in the 70s. Worked his way through, the ranks and the progressions of football as a coach, ultimately becoming the head coach at Eastern Washington in 1994, and then in 2000, sort of overnight, becoming the head coach at Montana State, and was the head coach at Montana State from 2000 to 2006, and left MSU amidst, a very scandalous time at MSU. I mean, a lot of people have talked about the 2009 to 2012 range at the University of Montana, and Montana State went through a very, very troubling time as well. And again, how to assign things like responsibility, I think, is a little bit of a fool's errand. I think it's sort of everyone and no one at some stage, other than the actual physical acts themselves. But nonetheless, he was the head coach at that time, lost his job at that time, and was out of coaching for a while, for about 5 years. Came back to become the Idaho State head coach, I think in 2011?
2010.
2010?
No, 2011, you're correct.
Okay.
2011, yeah.
And was head coach at ISU for about 5 years as well. Really fun guy to talk to. We touched on a bunch of different stuff, but also, particularly in advance of Cat Grizz, a guy who knew the rivalry from a distance, then knew it up close, and then was in it, and in fact was the head coach, as we mentioned earlier, of the Montana State team that broke the streak, that won 10-7 in Missoula in 2002. So, but Coach Kramer, one of the all-timers to talk to. I mean, he is just as good as it gets, in terms of all of this. And I think, football and being a head football coach is a public place to be, and there's responsibilities that are yours that not always do you have even an ability to control. And so we understand, some of that stuff, but also a guy with some temporal distance from all of it, and yet still an intimate knowledge of everything that goes on, especially in a rivalry game like the one coming up Saturday.
I mean, there's no question that Mike Kramer is one of the most entertaining, but also one of the most polarizing figures in Big Sky Conference history. But he's always been an outstanding resource of mine because he has a steel trap for a memory, and he is a self-professed historian, and the guy started playing at Idaho in 1971. So he basically has been immersed in the history of the Big Sky Conference for almost the entire duration of the league. It's worth noting that he was a defensive coach and then the defensive coordinator at Montana State in the 80s as well. So he was on the staff for Dave Arnold when Montana State won the 1984 national championship. So he saw the highest of heights that Bobcat football has reached in the modern era. He also monitored from afar the lowest of lows, the streak, 16 straight losses to Montana. And then, he came to Montana State with the explicit and singular goal of ending the streak, period. That was not only his personal and program goal, but also the goal of the entire athletic department. That's what they hired him for. Yeah. And he did it. And then he beat the Grizzlies 3 out of 4 years. And then it all comes crashing down. We could do an entire show about the scandal. I mean, you think that the scandal here, for whatever reason, the scandal there was cut and dry and closed, even though it was outrageous. I mean, you're talking about 7 athletes selling cocaine that was funded with scholarship money, and this drug ring comes to a head with a murder. Unbelievable. I mean, it was in Sports Illustrated.
Yes.
And so, anyways, a fall from grace to be sure. And I know that he's a polarizing guy, especially after he sued Montana State University. But just from a historian perspective, there's truly no one better. So enjoy our conversation with former Montana State head coach Mike Kramer.
Welcome in to our ESPN Roundtable Special Edition. Cat Grizz Week, Grizz Cat Week, Brawl of the Wild, whatever you want to call it, the greatest rivalry in college football. And today we're joined by a very special guest, Mike Kramer, a guy who's been involved in this rivalry on and off, both outside of it and inside of it and all the way around it. Coach Kramer, thanks so much for being with us today.
It's just great to be with you guys, and hello to everybody in Montana.
First of all, let's go way back to your time playing for the Idaho Vandals. That you have as long of a history in the Big Sky Conference as anybody I know. And that's how we got to know each other, was just kind of talking the history of the Big Sky. But when you were playing for the Vandals and growing up in Eastern Washington, when did Montana State, those two programs, and the ferocity of the rivalry first land on your radar?
Well, Coulter, I might be the second oldest guy associated with the Big Sky Conference way back, as Coach Erickson's still alive and kicking around and doing well. And of course, Coach Erickson played quarterback for the Bobcats in the Grizz-Cat rivalry under Coach Jim Sweeney, and that's when I really got to understand it, simply because I was becoming a college fan, and I was watching the University of Idaho high school playing career. My head coach was Dewey Allen, who had played at the University of Montana, and he brought some of that rivalry to us. And then Mick Dennehy, of course, who would later become the head football coach at University of Montana, came to Colton, Washington, and coached my brothers and allowed me to be a part of his staff in 1976. And every year, about the end of October, Mick's eyes would glaze over a little bit, and it would be time for the rivalry to be on and going. And then, of course, I got a chance to go and coach at Helena High School, which is right in the middle. Right. Whether you're a Cat or a Grizz, it was right in the middle. But in 1977, the Bobcats were coming off the national championship, and of course, the Grizzlies were a woebegone program that had suffered the ignominies of the NCAA violations, on a near death penalty, and a near end of the program, according to students. Athlete voted at Missoula. And we got a chance to go over and watch a couple of games, and they weren't as titanic as they did eventually become. And in the early 80s, I joined Dave Arnold's staff down in Bozeman at Montana State. And our first year, coming off a 6-5 season, we ended up going 1-10, but that one was a win over the Grizzlies. And I think we partied for the next 364 days until we played again with Marty Morningweg in Dornblazer. And Coach Morningweg, now, a great fame and a great repute, had taken the Grizzlies into the 1AA playoffs in 1982. And he was at the downswing of his career. And by gosh, we were really playing well. But we were behind at halftime in Dornblazer, 20-10. We came back and won 34-24 behind the strength of a couple touchdowns by a kid from Missoula by the name of Tom Malum. And that's when I really felt the personality and the personal ownership of the game, not necessarily from a team point of view, but from an individual player point of view, and what it meant to all guys on both sides forever and ever and ever and ever. Because if you're born and raised and you move away, you still come back. You always come back to Montana. And if you're born, you're either Cat or Grizz, you're one or the other, and you really don't ever bleed colors either way. So it's been a wonderful rivalry. Of course, under Coach Reed, they got away from Bobcats for a while, and then we got an opportunity to close the gap a little bit in the early part of the early millennium. And then, of course, it's been back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then some incomparable finishes, especially last year. I thought last year's finish was the reason you never leave. You never go to your car, never want to listen to post-game, be in the stadium and watch it to the final inch, because literally, after hundreds of years of playing this game, not hundreds, but over 100 years of playing this game, it came down to literally a couple inches for the Grizz and the Cats. And the Cats were able to get away with steal at the end.
You know, a couple weeks ago, Montana renewed its rivalry with Idaho for the first time in 16 years in Missoula. They had played last season in Moscow. But you, of course, played at Idaho. What kind of rivalry was it with Montana, between Montana and Idaho, which has been ongoing also for over 100 years?
It was not. It was not a. You know, when I went to Idaho in the early 70s, 1972 was my freshman year. Boise State was just starting to rise, and it seemed like all of a sudden our attention was pointed that way. and I was thinking about this the other day. In my career against the University of Montana, I think I won one game. So it wasn't that it was a rivalry, but there were bigger things on the horizon for us at that time for Idaho. And Idaho, even in the 70s, was still trying to chase, you know, something bigger than the Big Sky Conference. And it's just so apropos that Idaho has had to redig itself back into what I consider to be the absolute perfect spot for a lot of these Intermountain teams to play against each other every year, regardless of where you have to go to make money and how you have to go to make money. Idaho belongs in the conference with Montana and Montana State, Eastern Washington. They need to throw themselves at each other. They need to recruit Pacific Northwest guys, and there needs to be something more personal involved. Because, you know, here's the other thing about the Idaho-Montana thing is that when we played against the University of Montana, almost all the Montana guys were from Montana. Well, a lot of the Idaho guys that I played with were also from Idaho, so there was a little bit of that. But if you look at the rosters like I did last weekend, there's something missing a little bit, especially at Idaho. They don't have hardly a kid from the state of Idaho on their roster. And I think that's a travesty, and hopefully Coach Petrino and his staff will adjust themselves and become more part of what I consider to be the bread and butter of our conference, which is local grown talent that turns into something extraordinary.
The fact that Idaho moved down from the FBS, though, do you think that gives them an opportunity to recruit more in-state kids just because it seems like there's more FCS caliber talent in the state?
That's a good question, Coulter. But here's what happened. Idaho lost its way in recruiting. When Idaho was good under Dennis Erickson, and then after with Keith Gilbertson and John L. Smith, they had a lot of Washington guys in their roster. They had a couple Idaho guys, but they had a lot of Washington guys in their roster, especially up and down the I-5 corridor, and especially out of Spokane. My best friends are John Yarno and Chris Tormian. One went to Gonzaga Prep, and the other one went to Ferris. They both played in Idaho, and they were both outstanding football players there. And, you know, there's not a Spokane kid or depth of Spokane kids on Idaho's roster. And I know that there's really good football played in Eastern Washington at big schools and small schools, and obviously through Montana and North Idaho and way over in the Seattle-Tacoma area. Those guys need to stay within these 4 Big Sky schools, or at Portland State to that mix, in those 5 Big Sky schools. And it would just create such great fan interest game after game after game after game after game. But I think that's what Idaho has missed, and it was wonderful to see Montana put it on them for maybe some malfeasance on Idaho's part.
Mike Kramer joining us on the ESPN Roundtable, former head coach at, 37% of the Big Sky Conference, Eastern Washington, MSU, and Idaho State. Been around the rivalry a long time, headed into Cat Grizz.
When you were talking about when you first got into coaching and then when you first got into college coaching, that whole time, the pendulum swinging back and forth was so interesting to me because you have Sonny Holland and Montana State, and Montana State is dominating the Grizzlies in all aspects, and they win the 1976 national title. They ascend to number 1 in the country in 1978. Sonny Lubick takes over when Sonny Holland steps away, and he recruits this tremendous group of Montana guys. I know Mick Delaney was on that staff as well. And I know those guys, some of those Montana guys from small schools, Class B schools, guys like Joe Bignell, guys like Clete Linebarger. That set the stage then for that 1984 championship run. But in the meantime, in the 1982, when the Grizzlies won that title with Marty Morningweg and Brian Salonen and that whole group, that sort of set the stage for then their rise when Harley Lewis built Washington Grizzly Stadium, and that opened in 1986. So just back and forth it goes. The Cats win in 1984, then Don Reed comes in 1985, and the Washington Grizzlies built in 1986, and then Montana has this sustained dominance. What do you think of just the way that it swung back and forth, and what was the key factor to Montana then seizing the rivalry for 16-plus years?
You know, guys, I think this ball game was not necessarily a game for the fans, for the boosters. or even the players and the coaches, this is a game of grade schools. Because if you're a Grizz kid and you're 4th grade or 5th grade and you wear a Grizzly shirt to school and the Grizzlies haven't won for a while, all those Bobcat kids are going to tease the living dog water out of you. And the same thing happened to the Bobcats. And so as the rivalry lost a little bit of balance there in the 90s, we were losing the war not in the stands and in recruiting. We were losing the war in the grade school. And so that's why this game means so much, because at home, Grandpa and Grandma, Mom and Dad, uncles and aunts all sitting around, they're talking about the game. And you're learning something about the game, whether you're a boy or a girl, and you're thinking about where you want to go to school. And, hey, you don't want to be at Thanksgiving being the guy that's catching all the guff because the school that you might like didn't win that game. And so I think the passion for success are grown so early in Montana about this game. I will be thinking about this game this week as the Cats and the Grizz play, about how this is going to impact future generations of not just players, but of students who become fans, who become boosters, who make this rivalry continue to grow and evolve for another 100 years.
Coach, in 1994, you take over as the head man at Eastern Washington, your first head coaching job in the Big Sky, and you were there 6 years, very successful national semifinal in 97. But as a head coach at Eastern, it seems like both the Montana schools are sort of secondary rivalries, but still strong rivals of Eastern Washington. What was your perspective on the schools at that time when you were then, having been in the conference that whole time, but it's a different perch when you're the head coach at a school?
Well, I had the great fortune of being able to be the head coach against the greatest player in the history of our conference, Dave Dickinson, and he made me pay for it. That guy, and that team. First, I got to coach lead a team against Coach Reed in 1995, which of course was a unmitigated disaster for us. We were a young Eastern Washington football team, and we got whacked. And of course, the Grizzlies went on and won the title. And then a couple years later, we were finally strong enough and good enough to be able to go into Washington Grizzly and win the game. In the meantime, as we were playing against Montana State under Coach Heisel was building a solid, steady base. In fact, the flavor of Bobcat football today is not the fly anywhere, do everything offense that maybe a lot of the teams have. It's still the flavor that Coach Cliff Heisel imbued in the school in the 1990s. Run the ball, play good defense, be solid in the kicking game. If you got to throw it, close your eyes and hope it gets caught, and then just keep on marching. So there were a lot of things that happened to me early in my head coaching career that are still true today. Washington Grizzlies still a sellout. The Grizzlies still can beat you with a pack. The Bobcats are still tough on defense, and you've got to pay the price of toughness to be able to find a way to eke out a win against either program. So toughness counts. The fans are awesome. This is just such a special deal that supersedes Auburn, Alabama, Army, Navy, all these other rivalries. A lot of other people can talk about, because the personal part of this is as good as bread and jam. I mean, it's just, there's nothing closer. And I just think that's one of the cool things about what'll happen Saturday.
In 1999, going into the 2000 season, then you make the jump from Eastern Washington to Montana State. So before we get into the quest to end the streak, tell us that story. What was the experience like? What led you to want to take the Montana State job?
I haven't been there. So many great players have played with or for us when I was there. Between Joe Roberts and a couple other guys who's a Missoula guy and who played a big role in our success at Montana State, there was just a really nice opportunity led by Chuck Lindemann and President Mike Malone to go to a school that was a have. Now, Eastern Washington is a good school, but it's still a have-not. Montana State is a half. You look at the stadium, you look at the facilities, you look at the infrastructure, you look at the fan base, you look at the booster revenue, you look at the mission of the university. It was more attractive to me than staying at Eastern Washington, laboring in the shadows, i.e. with great talent, but not necessarily with the full aura of being a head college football coach. And then, of course, we go to Bozeman, and immediately, unfortunately for us, the tragic loss of Mike Malone, and then Chuck was injured. He hurt his neck, and kind of forced into retirement and had to step away. All of a sudden, we were leaderless. We had no president. We had our athletic director was interim, and it was like, and we weren't very good. And that was going to culminate in being 0-11, and it was about as not much fun as you could get to. We had 17 seniors when I took over the program. 4 of them made it to the start of the next season. 2 of them, Sean Ross and Ari Gray, are 2 of the great Montana kids in the history of the program, and their senior year went down to 0-11. And both those guys are still great friends, and we owe them a lot to our success because they helped us build the foundation that 2 years later would culminate in, one of those things that I get to stand before God, and God will say, okay, here's one good thing you did.
Well, take us back to that 2002 game at Washington Grizzly Stadium, because at that moment, the streak had honestly become out of hand. I mean, Montana had dominated the rivalry so thoroughly. The Bobcats had lost, and they'd lost big, they'd lost small, they'd lost in heartbreaking fashion, they'd lost in humiliating fashion. It had been a crazy time, and an entire generation of Cat fans did not get to see a win over the Grizz. But then you and freshman quarterback Travis Lulay, who's been on this show a couple times before as well, go to Washington Grizzly Stadium, and it was one of the most epic games in the rivalry, and one that I certainly will never forget. But what do you remember about your team's mindset going into that game, and what do you remember about what you guys were able to accomplish that afternoon?
Well, let's tick off the things we were facing. We'd had a decent year. We were getting a chance to maybe tie for the conference championship. But the team we were playing against was a defending national champion, led by Joe Glenn, who led them to the title, led by their quarterback, John Edwards, who had embodied everything that the Cat Grizz rivalry was about, is about, and will always be about. Montana kid that was just an outstanding football player. But we came in with a really outstanding defense, led by Pete Kwiatkowski, who's currently running a great defense with Jimmy Lake, who also played for us at Eastern Washington, out at the University of Washington. So there was a lot of heroes in that game on both sides who are still viable and a big part of college football and the college landscape today. But we went into the game. We'd been a little injured at wide receiver. We'd won a couple games with some backup wide receivers, but our receiving corps, led by Junior Adams, who's now at the University of Washington's assistant wide receiver coach, was finally healthy. And we also knew that if we could play enough kicking team defense, not defense and kicking game, but kicking team defense, we'd have a chance to hold it because our defensive front was phenomenal. Front seven, the linebacking fours, the down guys. Of course, Joey Thomas at corner with Jay Hackett at the other corner. These guys were stoppers. I mean, these guys, we could play man coverage on every down. And we did against Washington State that year. And Washington State had gone to a big bowl game. So we felt like we were athletically where we needed to be. We felt like after 2 years we imbued our team with enough of the spirit to go. And we had just a really good plan. And our plan on offense was simply that if they showed pressure, we were going to throw a slant to the inside slot because we felt like the safety would overrun it. As we got into a drive and got across midfield, and we had an opportunity. The Grizzlies like to zone pressure under Coach Bresky, and they who's still at the University of Idaho, and they would bring zone pressure, and the safety would rotate down to cover the slot, and that was just a win for us. If Travis could get rid of the ball before the outside safety got to him, it could be a touchdown. And simply on that play, that's exactly what happened. Well, lo and behold, though, into the teeth of that play here come the Grizzlies charging back. We were able to kick a field goal, get a 10-0 lead, and then here comes Johnny bringing them all back. But our defensive front, led by Roger Cooper and David Smith and Jason DeCastro and lots of great players, John Montoya, they were able to hold the fort, and all of a sudden the game's over. I mean, I'm telling you, Phyllis, 19 years later, 17 years later, it's still shocking to me that the game got over. I'm like, when it ticked down to 0, it was like, really? I mean, really? I was like, really? And it's like when you discovered that maybe there wasn't an Easter Bunny, or maybe there wasn't a Santa Claus. Really? Really? I'm not sure I want to believe this. So So it's a great honor to coach in that game, and it's a beyond a lifetime experience for us to have made that rivalry back into something that's fun for everybody and fun to be a part of. But it's also I wouldn't say deadly serious, because war is deadly serious. This is serious, but it's not deadly serious.
Mike Kramer joining us. He was the head coach at Montana State from 2000 to 2006, head coach in the Big Sky Conference for about 15 years plus around different schools. And, Coach, you talked about the fact that when you were an assistant coach at Montana State, is kind of the first time where you got maybe the first personal sort of window into what the rivalry is and was all about. As the head coach, you talked about the game and ending the streak and what that was like, but in broad scope, what was it like for you, as the head coach of Montana State, to play every year against Montana in the Cat Grizz game?
Win the game or get fired.
Yeah.
I mean, really, win the game or get fired. I mean, literally, as an assistant coach or head coach, it's win the game or get fired. And even if you have had you're undefeated and you got things going or whatever, you lose this game, on Monday you're holding your breath. Literally, every single year from 83, 84, 85, 86, and then 2000 to 2006, every Monday after the game, if we had lost, it was hold your breath. You literally hold your breath, because it was so important. And of course, after the 86 game, in which Mike Rice and Brent Pease had just torn us to pieces, we held our breath long enough to be fired on Tuesday. So it happened. It really happened. So in 2000, we lose 14-3 or 21-3, and I'm thinking that's my first year, but we didn't win a game. We didn't beat the Grizzlies. I might not be here Tuesday. And I sat with our interim athletic director, and he said, okay, go get him. And then a year later, we were competitive in the game.
Sometimes you have an issue, and it's a little computer deal. And Coulter, you and I, if we were left in the woods on a mountaintop, we could make fire, we could find venison, we could melt snow for water. The computer shuts off, it's all over for us. You know what I mean? We got no chance of getting this thing to work. Our old computer system, from time to time gets in there. We were getting right to the sweet spots, too, with Mr. Mike Kramer on that stuff. He is the greatest, though, to talk to him. I mean, does anybody have you and Mike Kramer in a laughing contest would probably send me straight to heaven. He's just unbelievable.
He's a complete anomaly of a human.
He is.
He's like the outlier of a man, because he's just so big in every way.
Big personality, big human, and also like a farmer here.
For the
okay.
coaches as well.
Okay, we'll go back to it.
Of it is part of what makes it great. But is it crazy? Isn't that crazy that one game over an entire season or maybe portions of a person's career can be the sort of overwhelming statement about whether you're successful or not?
My answer to that is real simple. Sports in America is a phenomenon. There's just no rationale why hundreds of billions of dollars would be spent on an oblong ball that the rest of the world just cannot conceptualize. I mean, it's getting better every year. I don't want to say it's crazier every year. It's more phenomenal every year, but it's better every year. There's just more interest, more caring. We're doing a better job of looking at why guys get hurt or what the impact of collisions are. We're doing a better job of protecting the players that play in the game. We're doing a better job of presenting our product to all genres, all people, all interests. We're doing a better job of making sure that guys that go to college get degrees. We're doing a better job of making sure that guys go in the NFL, that they don't retire crippled. We're doing a better job at the high school level of making sure that we don't play too often or without enough rest, or we play too many games. There's just so many ways in which we're enhancing a phenomena that has no rhyme or reason. There's just no scientific base that you can say that can justify this. But it is. And because it is, it's fun. And if it's going to be there and it's going to exist, it might as well be as fun as anything. And the fans have turned it into something not religious, but something awful close to devotion.
We'll get you out of here on this then, Coach. This is the 119th rendition of this great rivalry, and it's sort of come full circle now with the fact that it's more even than it's been. This last 2 decades has been back and forth. You know, Montana State, they've beat each other quite frequently, winning on the road more often than not this decade. But what do you think this rivalry means just to the Big Sky Conference in general, and where do you think this rivalry ranks on a national scale?
Well, on a national scale, not very many people have been to Montana, so they don't know. And that's fine. Stay away.
No doubt.
Right.
On a personal level, to all the players involved, I don't think the trophy should travel. I think that the state legislature should build a building on top of the divide, above you, and house that sucker in a Cat Grizz museum and tell the story of what this rivalry is really all about. Because from Ekalaka to Libby, from Plentywood down to the far reaches of Dillon, this thing is the most fun event that Montana has ever had, and it replicates itself every single year. And whether you're at the game site or you're on the radio or you're watching on TV, you're going to talk about it for 364 more days until next year. So win, lose, tie, or draw, this thing is going to last a long time. It's great to see some balance in it. I love both coaching staffs and how they're playing. Got their guys playing this year. Should be a lot of fun. But guess what? There's going to be another one next year. It's going to be just as much fun.
One other thing for you here before we get you out of here, Coach. But what are you up to these days? And come Saturday, what are you going to have this thing? Are you going to take a look at rivalry game number 119?
Well, number one, thanks to the internet, I'm able to watch every team in the Big Sky play almost the entire year, and I'm really up to speed on where everybody's at, how they're playing. I get a chance to record all the games and watch them again, and I want to stay on top of the science of the ball game. I don't know the personalities as much, and I don't know the story behind the players, which is something that is really the story behind this Cat Grizz game. So I'm involved in watching the games. I'm having a lot of fun. Being retired, I'm actually doing some minor logging today.
Nice.
I guess that would make me probably a Grizzly fan today. So like close to Olivia, doing some logging on some property I have up here in North Idaho. But I'm enjoying myself. I'm healthy. I miss the sport a lot, and I miss the interaction with all the players. What I don't miss is I don't miss the nail biting, the nail biting and the cell phone. That's something that just has make the sport a little bit different than maybe it needs to be. The instantaneous gratification that people want from today's event is something that it's a new phenomenon, and I get a chance to watch it, but not necessarily have my life tied up in it.
We're not going to ask you to make a pick, but I do want to get your perspective on this. Is a Coach Houck team in year 2. Bobby Houck has his identity on this team faster than I think a lot of people expected. It's certainly Jeff Choate's identity at Montana State. I thought your parallel between him and Cliff Heisel's teams was great because they do. They run the ball with authority. They play great defense. They play with an edge, just like Coach Heisel's teams did. Very similar to what your teams did as well. But just the dynamic of these two head coaches clashing, what do you expect? How do you think this game is going to play out on Saturday?
It's every one of it comes down. Every time this game is played, it comes down to mistakes. Who can avoid the catastrophic mistake, and who can make the mistake that they make not turn into something that they can't overcome? A fumble punt, a 15-yard penalty, holding penalty just before you score, or as last year's game was typified by the last play, a fumble in the red zone, inside the one, going in for the win. Oh my gosh. So to me, it's how can you do everything you know how to do, and when you make a mistake, not make that mistake be such a blemish. both coaches are experienced, both coaches are savvy, both staffs understand what's at stake. Rather than make a prediction, I just hope everybody enjoys the entire piece of the pie, because it's something that we have to wait again another 364 days to see next year.
Well, Coach, in typical Two-Tell Nuanez fashion, we said we had one last question for you and asked you 10 more, but we appreciate it very much you being with us. It's been a blast to talk with you and get your perspective, kind of looking back on a rivalry that you've been in and around for decades. So we really, really appreciate it, and best to you. Enjoy the game Saturday and the logging today, all right?
Well, my last thing to you guys, very simply, is thanks for having me on and having an opportunity to talk about something I think about 5 minutes out of every hour for the rest of my life. I always think about, coaching at Montana State, being in Montana, seeing all the people, knowing all the people in all the towns, and being a part of that rivalry, because I'm a huge, huge, huge Grizz fan, and I'm a huge Bobby Hauck fan. But I'm also a Bobcat. I got a paycheck from there, and I'm still loyal to being a Bobcat. So I say go Grizz and go Cats, and hey, let's have some fun.
Some fun is exactly what we will have. Our thanks to Mike Kramer for joining us on the ESPN Roundtable. This is going to air again tomorrow at noon on ESPN Radio, and then we'll be at SkylineSportsMT.com as part of the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series there, so you can listen to it anytime you'd like to as well. But a really fun conversation with Mike Kramer. We certainly appreciate him joining us for it. It's presented by Paradise Falls. Coulter Paradise Falls at 3621 Brook Street on the south end of the city of Missoula, near the corner of the intersection between Brooks and South Reserve. Great spot on the south end. Not a ton of options over there, and especially when you get into the FCS playoffs, all this stuff's on ESPN, ESPN3. Can't necessarily watch it on your TV at home. Go down to Paradise Falls. They got all the hookups there. They can show you every game, any game that you want.
Root Sports, ESPN3, ESPNU, Pluto, 11 Sports. They got it all. They got 30 big screen TVs they can stream it through. A great menu with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. One of the rare places you're going to be able to find that. Plus with full bar and 18 draft beers. Check out the early happy hour, the late happy hour. They have specials going on all the time. So head on over to Paradise Falls, 3621 Brook Street in Missoula. Missoula's coolest hotspot.
The most important player on Montana State, we talked about that in the last hour. Who's the most important player on the Grizzlies in this game Saturday? I think the answer is obvious. I'll tell you who I think. Coulter will as well next.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up.
Looking for something refreshing but different? Stop by your local Town Pump. They've got the perfect refreshers. White Claw, Truly, and Smirnoff Seltzer 12-pack cans, $14.99. And Cook's 1.5 liter, only $10.99. Find all your refreshments at Town Pump, right down the road.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, yeah.
More than 60 years ago, R.J. Rangich opened up Rangich Brothers with one thing in mind: quality and family tradition. Those family traditions continue today and live through our family, staff, and those who buy our RVs. So whether your travels include the shores of Flathead, Glacier Peaks, Yellowstone Geysers, or the hidden gems in between, jump into Jayco and experience the best freedom you and your family will ever know. Only where a handshake means something. Rangich Brothers RV Center.
Hey, Coulter Nuanez from Two-Tell Nuanez. If you need a great place for a Christmas gift, I got a spot for you. Aspen Sound in Missoula. They got all the hookups for everything you could possibly need for your vehicles. What are some of the sweet things you got going on down there, Tom?
Thanks, Coulter. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto have sure been popular this year for safety and convenience. You can do text messaging, maps, pretty much everything you need, phone calls, music, everything right from the touch of your radio. We also have remote car starters, as you know, and window tint. Lots of goodies at a great price. Come on down and see us.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
There's a saying, opportunity never knocks twice. When you're ready to take advantage of your next opportunity, look to your local bank. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Opportunity Bank offers options for mortgage loans, small business loans, equipment financing, agriculture, and more. Our experienced team can provide solutions to help you welcome your next big opportunity. There's nothing like the feeling of progress. So let's get started today. Come see us at your local Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Americans waste 3.8 million gallons of gas by idling every single day. Idling for more than 10 seconds actually uses more fuel and produces more emissions than stopping and restarting your engine.
Vehicle exhaust contributes to smog, climate change, and poor air quality, heightening the risk of developing asthma and lung disease. Kids and seniors are especially vulnerable to these health risks.
So next time you're stopped for more than 10 seconds at the train, getting coffee, or picking your child up from school, please turn your vehicle off.
Brought to you by Missoula in Motion.
This is Tom Skerritt for the Borgen Project. Each year, nearly 2 million children die from preventable diseases. Each day, 30,000 people die from hunger. 500 each hour are children. The Borgen Project is turning this around. We need your help. To learn more, go to BorgenProject.org. That's BORGEN project.org.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Hope you're well. You happy there, big fella?
Sure.
Grinning. It's good. Like to see it. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula. Highway 83 in Sealy. And Saturday, December 7th, it's their 7th annual snow day. One day only 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Free lunch. Take the kids. And also save a ton of money. Biggest sale of the entire year, one day only, Kurtz Polaris. If you missed anything in the show, check it out on the podcast. Podcast available on the wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. Transistor, all of it. Tutel and Nuanez podcast available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Also want to remind you, the last regular season edition of the FCS Speculators, a betting podcast. People, listen to this for us, would you? Okay, because we've done it 3 times. This is a big one. We gotta make it worthwhile. FCS Speculators, a betting podcast. It's going to be up this evening, and so go check that out. And Dave's doing a great job putting that together, sewing that together. A lot of surgery needing to be done to it to get it up and out for you today. Coulter, we talked in the last hour about the most important player in this game for Montana State. Again, distinct from the best player, though it certainly could be. To me, the most important player for the Grizzlies on Saturday it's a no-brainer. The answer is Dalton Sneed. Dalton Sneed is the answer for 2 reasons. He is the straw that stirs the drink offensively for Montana. They got a ton of weapons, but he's the one who makes it go. And the other thing is he's injured. I mean, he was out for 2 games, came back during the Idaho game, played last week, played well, but he is sort of Troy Anderson-esque right now. The both of them are kind of the walking wounded, and he is his ability to play within the scope of what his physical health is like is going to be huge. And so he is, to me, the key for Montana in this football game. In general, he might be anyways, but especially how is he going to look relative to his high ankle sprain?
Yeah. The biggest, I think, when you're talking about comparing position to position, not who's going against who, but just comparing who has an advantage at each position on paper. Dalton Sneed, when he was healthy, was the best quarterback in the Big Sky Conference and a true All-American candidate. And that's not the case with Tucker Rovig. So it's a huge advantage for Montana.
Sure.
In that element, even with Sneed hobbled. Here's what I'm interested in. Montana's offensive line got dominated against Sacramento State. And that's half the reason why Dalton Sneed got hurt. There was no chance for Weber State's offensive line or defensive line to wreak havoc like they're normally used to, because Weber State had never been down by more than 7 points in a game this season, period. When they went down 21-3 because of 2 special teams blunders, it could fundamentally alter the entire game. And it also allowed Dalton Sneed to be settled in without having to do anything crazy. Montana State's defensive line is going to run roughshod on Montana just because of their talent. I think Montana can hold their own up front, but I don't know. To me, the most important player in this game is twofold. It's the two-headed monster that Montana plays at linebacker, Jace Lewis and Dante Olson. Because Cats have 19 different ball carriers this year. They got 7. They do. They've had 19 different ball carriers. They got 7 dudes with over 100 yards rushing, 5 dudes with over 300 yards rushing. The discipline that those guys might be able to enact could slow Montana State down. If they can do that, Montana State's offense becomes almost irrelevant.
2 more days. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires. Well, more like Les Schwab alignment and brakes and shocks and wheels and tires. Now, some tire places don't offer all that. They only sell tires. And we're not sure how they sleep at night because all those services affect things like steering and stopping. That's why we offer more than tires to help keep you safe. Stop by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Selway Armory on Black Friday is the one store you have to visit to save huge on guns, ammo, and accessories. Check out Selway Armory's insert in the Thanksgiving edition of the Missoulian before Black Friday to see all of the unbelievable inventory and savings they have in store for you. Put Selway Armory on your schedule and get there this Black Friday and Saturday for the sale of the year. Get to the store at 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6 behind IHOP on North Reserve. Selway Armory's Black Friday sale. Shop local, save money, shoot more.
It's a rite of passage, that first bank account. Explore the great options for your young adult with a visit to Farmer State Bank, online at farmersebank.com or in person at any of our 9 locations in western Montana. Our checking and savings accounts are designed to fit any lifestyle and budget with the flexibility, innovations, and security today's consumers demand. Start out right with Farmer State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907. Member FDIC.
Are you interested in putting solar panels on your roof? Do you want the latest on Montana's renewable energy policies? The Montana Renewable Energy Association is a leading voice for renewable energy education and advocacy in Montana. From community-based clean energy events to advocating at the Montana legislature, they work to ensure Montana's future is powered by the sun, wind, and earth. Find out more about MREA and join as a member by visiting montanarenewables.org or calling 406-214-9405.
You've been auditioning at the dinner table for years. Are you finally ready to hit the stage? Arts Missoula and ASUM are teaming up again to showcase the best of the region's high school talent at First Night Spotlight. Audition at Hellgate or Big Sky after school on December 2nd and 5th, respectively. Or for Sentinel, Willard, and surrounding schools, tryouts will be held 11:30 a.m. Saturday, December 7th at the UC Theater. The best of the best will be invited to perform live on New Year's Eve. To sign up for First Night Spotlight tryouts, go to artsmissoula.org.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula.